The time is at hand.
From the land of the rising crackheads in Williamson, West Virginia, you're in Dark Places. My name is Junebug Fugit. It would seem that the crackheads have retaliated against my little quote there. I think they're listeners. On Thursday night, January 2nd, the crackheads broke into my parents' old house, the haunted house that I always talk about. They broke into it. Mostly had just a bunch of junk in there now. All the good stuff is here. But they broke into the house and they stole what was considered kind of good, I guess. They took an old TV that didn't work. They attempted to take another TV that did work, but they dropped it and fell out of the window or something with it and broke it. Clumsy crackheads. And they also stole my sister's four-wheeler ATV thing. It was kind of junk too, though it didn't run very good. So we've been dealing with that fun for the last few days, talking to the police and stuff. It was undoubtedly crackheads, but we don't know which ones. So we're trying to get to the bottom of it. Now, I'm recording this on January 5th, and as my friend Barrett over at the City Between the Lakes would say, we are experiencing Snowmageddon. Big Blizzardo Loco happening right now while I'm recording. We have about 4 inches of snow and it just keeps coming down. Everyone's been freaking out at the grocery stores, buying all the milk sandwiches they can get a hold of. And the storm was definitely not man-made. What are you talking about? There's no possible way it was man-made. Wink, wink. But that's not why you called. I can already picture the hate mail coming in now. Why you ramble on so much? Why don't you bite me? It's been a while since we checked in on our old buddy Bigfoot. You know Bob Ross? The guy that used to paint the happy little trees and he had that big afro? I think he was a believer. Me and Brandon were watching one of his old episodes, and on season 7, episode 3, he talked about this dark spooky forest that he was painting, and he said, it looks scary, there's probably some boogers in there. And booger is another word for Bigfoot. Yeti, the Squatchinator, making copies. This is Bigfoot Encounters 8. When I was 18, working in Page, Arizona at the Antelope Marina restaurant, after work I was with my ex hanging out, then left Page around 7 or 8ish, where I circled and ended up seeing some really tall, I guess, hairy man, who would probably be like 9 feet tall or taller, because I could see the knees bend, and they were bending at the 6 foot range, near my shoulders. I'm only 5'11", and when I was driving and I saw it run across the highway in 2 long strides, it looked completely inhuman. In my eyes, impossible for a human to do. For years, I've wondered if I was just hallucinating, and I wanted to tell more people. This story is by Flacco Fabulous, and seems kind of familiar. My boy and I in Hocking Hills, Ohio again. Hocking Hills State Park delivers again. Just updating another late night endeavor in Conkle's Holler. Sorry, it says hollow. Let's hillbillies say holler, but it says hollow here. Hey, who cares? It was Conkle's Holler. We learned from our last time to not be so provoking this time. Had a cabin at the state park this weekend. My son and I decided to go back to the encounter area in Conkle's that we had last summer and early fall. I brought nothing more than a basic flashlight, a walking stick, and an MP3 recording device. Phones are absolutely useless down there, and anyone who knows can confirm it. It's just a paperweight down there, and those gorgeous. We did the usual trail, nothing special tonight, except every trail from the top of the cave or the bottom of a gulch had literally interwoven trees, preventing the easy way out. Interesting. When we got back to that parking lot where the trail began, I threw my walking stick down over the cliff. Within 7 to 10 seconds, we heard the biggest crackling crunch you could imagine. Like something found my 3 to 4 inch diameter walking stick and shattered it over its knee. That was enough. Sorry if it wasn't exciting, but that's my last story. And I'm being honest. Can't wait to go back Valentine's weekend. So we'll be on the lookout for that. The story is by Harry Manager, 4127. Thanks, Harry. I grew up in northern Arizona, in a pretty woodsy area, and spent hours each day playing outside alone. I would have been around 10 years old when this happened. One day I was walking home and I saw a large creature standing next to a house up the road. It was far enough away that I couldn't see details, but it was broad daylight, and the creature was stark black, which immediately caught my attention. At first I thought it might be a man on a ladder. However, as I stared longer, I realized I was looking at it head on, and it was looking at me. The creature was completely black and standing totally still. Admittedly, my first thought was, Bigfoot! I panicked and ran home as fast as I could. Once I was inside and had calmed down, I remembered there had been recent reports of a bear in the neighborhood. I simply told myself I'd seen the bear and told my mother so she could alert the neighbors. For the next week, I stayed inside to play. What stuck with me, though, was that the creature didn't seem to have the pointed snout of a bear. I told myself I was just letting my imagination get the better of me, and eventually let it go. Fast forward to a few months ago, I visited my hometown for the first time in over a decade, and decided to show my boyfriend my childhood home. As we walked through the neighborhood, I reminisced about my childhood and shared stories about my wildlife encounters. He's a city boy, so those kinds of stories always fascinate him. When we walked past the house where I had seen the creature, I pointed it out and told him, "That's where I saw the standing bear as a kid." I added that it had been so large, its head was higher than the eave of the house, which we could see was about 9 feet off the ground. My boyfriend asked, "How big do bears get?" I pulled out my phone, Googled the average height of black bears, and shared what I found. He said, "That's pretty big for a bear, don't you think?" That comment made me realize something. For the creature's head to be that much higher than the eave, it would have had to have been closer to 10 feet tall. I've had a casual interest in Bigfoot for a while, but I don't want to make any biased assumptions about what I saw. Well, I think you saw Bigfoot. Sasquatch Maybe by Our Eggplant 2110. They say seeing is believing, and I never believed these supernatural things, or things like Bigfoot or Yeti, until a few months ago. Leading up to the encounter, you could say, I heard really strange noises like people screaming or something like a wolf howling, as well as knocking sounds, sort of wood knocking, smacking together. And then my dog, who I slept with, would perk his head up and stick his snout under the blinds to look. Occasionally, he would growl, but I'd look out and not see anything. Tell him to shut up, and I'd nod off to sleep, because I always play it off as some animal or some kids messing around in the woods. One night I was watching YouTube near the middle of the night and heard the sound again, and of course my dog went under the blinds and started growling, which was relatively normal until he started barking and growling. Knowing he normally won't do this, I put my hand on my shotgun that stays near my bed, wondering if someone's trespassing or something bad is happening. I grab my blinds and throw them up, and see a pair of glowing eyes about 8 to 10 feet off the ground, looking right at me. At first, I thought it was a bear standing on his hind legs, but the moonlight definitely showed otherwise. It looked, as I said, 8 to 10 feet tall, with reddish-brown hair, and it had a pretty muscular build. I was really scared, but it turned around and ran into the woods on his hind legs, and eventually got on 4 legs before disappearing. It was pretty hard to sleep after that, but the next morning, when the sun came up, I went out with my shotgun, and I saw footprints where it had been standing that were about 18 inches long. I live in central/southern Virginia, and haven't shared this story until now. Well, thanks for sharing. Memory of a Sighting by Odd Potato 3000. When I was 12, I attended church with another girl my age, and we eventually became close friends. One evening she invited me to spend the night. For context, she lived on a horse farm outside of town. 3 huge fields. One behind her house with a barn where the stable was. One across the road of her house where they ran the horses. And one to the right of that field, which they didn't use much, but it had a back area. It was kind of marshy and a lot of wooded area too, so we weren't allowed back there. So first night goes by fine. We stay in playing Barbies and horses and snacking junk food. The next day, after lunch, she offers for us to go ride her horse. So we put on our helmets and she led, and I held on to her. Her dad warned us about the back area, yada yada, and we went off into the field. Rode around for close to an hour, and we were passing the tree line to the marshy area. We were already too far and were thirsty, so she turned us around, and it happened fast. The horse kicked up off the ground, front legs, and bucked us both off. I hit the ground so hard, and the horse took off. So we gather ourselves and look around, and we make eye contact with a huge, hairy creature above us in a tree. I'm talking gorilla type huge. Hair was matted and black, but also brownish in areas. Kind of looked dusty, maybe. And his eyes were dark and sunken and piercing through my soul. He was standing on a tree branch, probably 9 to 12 feet above us. Think oak tree, but it was winter, so there were no leaves. I remember being so frozen with fear, I tried screaming, but I couldn't. And I remembered the pungent, breath-stealing stench in the air, like rotting meat and wet dog. So my friend grabbed my arm and started running. We ran for our lives. I looked back multiple times, and it just watched us the whole time. We came across her horse, not far from us, stuck in the marshy gunk. It was like quicksand. I STG, I don't know what that is, and pulled on her reins forever, but eventually got her out. It was stressful because we didn't want to leave the horse, and we didn't want to be in trouble for riding in the marsh. But I was scared to be there and wanted to go get her dad to come back. But we freed ourselves miraculously. It was a long walk back to her house, but I never went over to her house again, and her dad didn't believe us. No one did. But I'll never forget it. Well, odd potato, we at In Dark Places believe you. The story is by Herman Mansoria. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I can't explain what I saw. I moved to Colorado in 2019 and spent a lot of time driving in the mountains, exploring new areas. I love photography and nature, so I spend hours driving around and taking photos of the beautiful nature here. One day I was in the middle of nowhere in the mountains with my dog and no cell service. The sun was starting to go down, and thankfully I had my GPS on prior to losing service, so I had directions to get back to Denver. I was a little nervous because I would usually get back before it was starting to get dark, and my GPS was taking me down this sketchy dirt road instead of the paved highways that I was used to. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something large walking about 50 yards away from the road between the trees. At first I thought it was a person, but it was too large for a man, and genuinely looked like the shape of what we all know as Bigfoot. Considering there was no paved road, car, house, etc. in sight, I was obviously freaked out, and got out of there as fast as I could. Looking back, I have been so upset with myself for not stopping my car and trying to get a picture. I had my DSLR, whatever that is, with my zoom lens and everything, so I could have gotten a clear shot of whatever it was. I'm sure it was most likely an animal on its hind legs, even though it really looked like it was walking like a human, but it would have been nice to know for sure. All I know is it scared me enough to step on my gas and speed out of there until I was back on a normal road. I'll never know if what I saw was a Bigfoot, but it's my Bigfoot story. I've told it for years, and can no longer get mad at others for claiming a sighting but not having evidence. I didn't believe in Bigfoot before, and don't necessarily believe now, but it has stuck with me ever since. These are some newspaper stories. The story is from 1977. Man reportedly in shock after seeing Bigfoot. Eastonville, Washington. A serviceman reportedly was sent into shock by sighting a big hairy creature he believed to be Bigfoot near Eastonville last week, the Tacoma News Tribune reports. Thanks, Tacoma News Tribune. The unidentified Fort Lewis enlisted man reportedly saw a big hairy thing while hiking in the woods near Northwest Trek Wild Game Preserve last week, the paper said. A Madigan Army Medical Center doctor who treated the soldier for shock told the paper Tuesday the man still was too unstable to discuss the incident. The doctor, who asked that his name be withheld, so let's respect his wishes, said that he could not divulge the soldier's name either because of the doctor-patient relationship. However, the doctor said that the soldier came to him extremely upset and would not discuss the reported sighting for some time. He is quite sure he saw Bigfoot, the doctor was quoted as saying. No report of the incident was made with the Pierce County Sheriff's Office, deputies said. Roger Thacker, Trek director, said Wednesday Trek had nothing to do with the incident. I can assure you, it was no put on by us. We have had nothing to do with any of these sightings. I did nothing, and none of our people did anything. The doctor called me and told me the man was terrified and in an extreme state of shock, Thacker said. Meanwhile, a Madigan ambulance driver told the newspaper he talked to a Puyallup man last September who sighted a similar creature near the Trek Preserve. The ambulance driver, Don Durden, a former policeman and civilian paramedic, was hiking near the Northwest Trek Wildlife Preserve, came across footprints that measured about 18 inches long and 8 inches wide, the newspaper said. I'm 6'4" and 285 pounds, and my footprint was dwarfed in comparison with this, he said. Durden said that as he followed the footprints, he encountered the Puyallup man, who insisted a Bigfoot creature had stared at him for 5 minutes as he was parked in his truck on a logging road east of Trek. He said the animal was between 8 and 9 feet tall, with black fur covering most of his body. The face was definitely not that of a gorilla, but closer to that of a human, Durden said. Cyclist gets big scare from Bigfoot, the Associated Press. Grants Pass, Oregon. A Nevada motorcyclist told state police he spotted a 7-foot-tall creature resembling the elusive Bigfoot while riding along an interstate highway in the rain. Paul T. Claywell of Las Vegas pulled off Interstate 5 on Sunday morning and reported to state police he spotted the creature and then continued on his way. State police dispatcher Kathy Wooten said Monday. He stated that his headlight hit an animal which was standing upright on its hind legs. Miss Wooten read from a police log. It turned and looked at him as he approached it and turned and ran off the road, still upright. She said the officer who took the report said that Claywell was obviously very shook and seemed quite sane when he came in. Bigfoot is the popular name for a large ape-like creature, also known by the Indian name Sasquatch, which supposedly roams through forests in the Pacific Northwest. He stated that he knew he was tired, but he knew for sure it wasn't a bear because bears usually don't run upright, Ms. Wooten said. He stated that the animal ran hunched over and had long straight hair all over its body, as well as its face. He stated that he would describe him as the animal called Bigfoot. Off the freeway, there is a large statue of a caveman at the north entrance to Grants Pass, but Ms. Wooten said it was unlikely Claywell mistook the statue for Bigfoot. They wouldn't have run across the road in front of him, she said. And that story was from 1983. This story is from 1982. Bigfoot prints appear authentic, by the Associated Press, Seattle. Footprints taken after the reported sighting of a hairy, huge Sasquatch or Bigfoot appear to be authentic, a Washington State University anthropologist says. Grover Krantz, an associate professor of anthropology, examined footprint casts taken after U.S. Forest Service patrolman Paul Freeman reported seeing an 8 to 9 foot tall creature in the Tiger Creek area northeast of Walla Walla, Washington, last June. Krantz said Monday he believes the footprints are from a Bigfoot as the Sasquatch is also known, but declined to reveal how he reached that conclusion. The professor said he plans to discuss details of his findings Friday at a meeting of the International Society of Cryptozoology in Vancouver. Hey, how fun would that have been? That would have been cool. Especially back in those days. British Columbia. Cryptozoology is the study of hidden animals, and Krantz is a member of the Society's board of directors. Freeman said he feels vindicated by Krantz's findings. He's an anthropologist. He ought to know, said Freeman, who now works as a meat cutter in Camas, Washington. Freeman said he quit his Forest Service job soon after the Bigfoot sighting because of the flack he was taking over the incident. He said his superiors tried to discredit his report, but Freeman said he has seen other giant prints in the forest since his June sighting and has made casts of those prints. I'm going to kill me one, Freeman said to the Sasquatches. I'm going to hunt for one until I find one. The story is from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and be sure to check out bfro.net. They got tons of good sightings on there. They do a lot of hard work. This is from the winter of 1994, December, in Tennessee, Tipton County. Me and 3 of my friends were coon hunting. We were sitting around, waiting on the dogs to strike, and we heard something rustling in the leaves behind us. It was a bright night out, and we were right on the bank of the Hatchie River. In the direction that we heard the noise was a small bluff, and then went into an open field. Due to the brightness of the moon, it almost looked like daylight in that field. When we turned around to see what was making all the noise, we saw the monster on the edge of the field. All we could see was a perfect outline of the creature's body. It was very fast on its feet. We never saw it stand still. The first time we turned around, we saw it run across the edge of the field, faster than any other animal could run. Everyone was shocked and was asking one another if they saw it too. Seconds later, it ran back across again. This time it went from upright to all fours and back to upright. It never broke stride. It appeared to be around 6'5" to 8 feet tall and weigh about 225 to 275 pounds. It was hairy, but not like you see in Bigfoot movies. It was very agile and robust. Few people have seen this creature, but the ones that have refuse to go back to that area after dark. This sighting is basically hot off the press and brand new. Gunnison National Forest Eye Sighting by Mink Flow. Thanks, Mink. On December 21st, 2024, at approximately 3:30 p.m., my girlfriend and I were driving south on North Highway 135. We were on our way back from Crested Butte Ski Resort, and we had just passed the entrance to the Roaring Judy Fish Hatchery. As I was looking out the window at the East River, Gunnison River, and wooded area that runs alongside the road on our right side heading south, I noticed a figure standing next to a tree in a marsh or water. I couldn't exactly tell. This figure was what I estimated to be about 7 to 7.5 feet tall. It was about 75 meters from the road, and I could clearly see a head, 2 shoulders, and arms hanging down to below the waist. Below that, I believe it was in the water or on the marsh. The figure was entirely black with no variation in color, and it didn't appear that it was clothing. I also believe it was facing away from me, looking toward the opposite direction. It was not moving and was standing entirely straight up from what I could see. At this point I said to my girlfriend that I either saw a very tall person standing out in the water/woods or that was a Bigfoot. I convinced her to turn around and try to locate exactly where I saw it, so I could pull the car over and look. After going back, we stopped for a few minutes, but I couldn't figure out the exact location where I saw it, and it wasn't safe to be stopped on the side of the road with a small shoulder. There was one small house about a minute down from where I saw it that appeared to be abandoned, and there were no cars parked or people walking in that area from what we could see. There was also about a foot of snow at least, and it was 20 degrees out. On our way back, I then Googled Gunnison National Forest Bigfoot, and the very first thing that popped up was a sighting in almost the same area with the exact same description as I had seen. In my opinion, I believe I saw a Bigfoot that was ironically standing in the water right next to a fish hatchery looking for its dinner. I can't think of a reason that someone would be standing in that water, and I did not see a fishing pole. I couldn't make out any features, only the height, stature, long arms, and solid black color on his whole body. That's about all the creepy Bigfoot encounter stories I have for you. If you got any information about the crackheads that broke into my mom and dad's old house, I'd like to hear about it. Hey, thanks for listening. We really appreciate you. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless.